All right, we are recording. If you want, you can continue singing if you want. I don't mind. All right. So what do we see? What we see is, in fact, an exaggeration of, let's see, also. Participants. Let's wait a minute. Okay. So what we see is an exaggeration of the human body. So an exaggeration of a characteristic already found in the work of Michelangelo. This, in effect, is something that, this is Jacopino del Conte, Madonna and Child with Saint Elizabeth, and Saint John the Baptist here. And you see it in this. This is extraordinary. Look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's at least. So a body of 12 heads. The figure is represented in a way. What organizes the figures is the decision, is aesthetic, in that what you see is this serpentine, undulating linear structure. Well, one of the great artists and who created what, to my view, is one of the great masterpieces of the period, along with another one, is Parmigianino. So Parmigianino is this artist that you see here, representing himself in a convex mirror, and exaggerating the distortions. This exaggeration of distortions is one of the characteristics of Mannerism. The liberty to distort the human body for expressive, visual, and narrative elements. So it's in that sense that the Mannerists are announcing something that we will see very strongly in the 19th century. This is probably one of the greatest masterpieces. I saw this in the Uffizi, and I couldn't believe how perfect this painting is. There's nothing that, that's the problem, is that we don't have museums in Lebanon. But if you're ever in Florence and you go to the Uffizi, this is something that you should absolutely see. The image here does not give it justice. When you see it at scale, and when you see it with all of the techniques that you find in it, it's an amazingly, it's perfect. It's almost perfect image, rivaling anything of Botticelli, rivaling anything of Michelangelo, and even of Leonardo. But what do we see in this image? What we see is forms of distortions. I mean, look at the body of Christ. Is this the body of a baby? Well, this is the head of a baby. Is this the body of a baby? Well, why did he do that? Well, again, it's a reference to here. In the sense that the baby is taking almost the same position practically the same position that you find in Michelangelo's Pieta. So again, a reference to Michelangelo's Pieta, and a reference to a technique, a narrative technique used by Leonardo. The baby here is indicating, and through his position, what will happen to him eventually, meaning that he will, now he is carried as a baby, and he will be carried as a dead body when he gets crucified and carried by his mother. The composition is largely pyramidal, but you notice something. This is Saint Jerome. You notice that this is Saint Jerome because he's carrying a scroll. Saint Jerome is one of the first, if not the first, who translated the Bible to Latin. Okay, and you notice this representation of Saint Jerome. Okay, this representation, we are not sure how far Saint Jerome is. There is no real indication. يعني the passage from the front of the painting to the background of the painting is abrupt. Well, what does this do? What it does is, in fact, give us the impression, ambiguous impression, not full impression, but ambiguous impression, that in fact this is his real size. Well, why would he do that? Well, in a sense, this is in opposition to naturalism. Size here is what Parmigianino is doing is, in fact, reverting to an old form of perspective, which is the value-based perspective, meaning you are as big as how important you are. Jesus is, the figure of Mary is as big, this big, because she is more important than the figure of Saint Jerome. And you notice that. You see that in paintings of the Sumerians. You notice that in the paintings of the Egyptians, where the pharaoh is represented bigger than the figure, than all the figures around him. Right? So what do we see then? What we see then is the detachment from reality. Okay, we have completely mastered the representation of reality. I mean, look at this guy. He has completely mastered the representation of reality. But we shall go the step further and distort it in order to express our ideas. In that sense, this is how profoundly modern it is. The other great artist is Agnolo di Cosimo, Agnolo Bronzino, a student of Pontormo. Bronzino is one of the great artists of the Renaissance, of the late Renaissance, which is the Mannerist period. And this is a representation of a woman and her little boy. I want you just to look at the figure of this little boy here. Does it give you the impression that he is alive? حاسين انه عايش هنا يا اما حاسين or does it? No. Isn't it?
مش مبين صراحة إذا عايش أو ميت.
Yeah.
يعني في indication بتبين إنه هو كتير حدا مش مريض يعني، أو هي هديته بإيدها.
True. كأنه مريض أو كأنه في شيء. I mean, wholly artificial in this presentation. طلع بقى expression تبعها.
لونه أبيض. ما في دم بوجهه.
ما في دم بوجهه، كأنه ماسك.
مظبوط.
وأزرق.
The same thing, expression تبعه is كمان completely neutral. وبتطلع بالfigure of the woman كمان she is very neutral. This is something that we will see in the portraiture تبع Bronzino. Tendency to represent the figures as neutral. I mean, as completely artificial. And ما في expression. يعني whereas Pontormo represented states, psychological states, in the representations in the portraiture of Agnolo Bronzino, what we see is a refusal to show any emotions. And this is Bia, the illegitimate daughter of Cosimo I de' Medici, the Grand Duke of Tuscany. Again, well, let me show you this one. This is Eleanor of Toledo, the wife of Cosimo de' Medici, and her son Giovanni de' Medici. I mean, look at the technicality of this painting. The technical ability of somebody like Bronzino. But you look at the figures and you look at the psychology, it's completely absent, artificial. Why would that be? Well, we can go into psychological attempts at psychological explanations. Cosimo de' Medici was the Grand Duke was a very secretive man, very violent and very secretive. يعني بس very secretive بس يفقع بيفقع. That's one. Two, these are paintings that are representations within a court. منن شغلتهم يعبروا عن البسيكولوجي. It's not the functions of these paintings to represent psychology of the figures. It's the functions of these paintings to represent the position, the hierarchy of the position within the hierarchy of these figures. يعني ما عم بيقلنا مين هي psychologically. He's not telling us who she is psychologically. He is telling us what she is as the Grand Duchess of Tuscany. The same thing you find it here in this almost ridiculous painting. This is Don Garcia de' Medici. This is a bambino. Look at the hand on the figure of this bambino. He is holding his hand, and in his hand holding an object. And he is being very graceful, very, this is not how a bambino would act. He's holding his hand like this, and to show how his position. This is not how. But again, these are not naturalistic representations. These are representations that of an assumed role, in the sense that when you are in a court, you are occupying an assumed role in the sense very close to when you are in a theater piece. You're an actor in a theater piece. You're assuming a role. No. It's not your function to talk about your psychology. It's not the function of these paintings to talk about the psychology. It's the function to talk about the position. So what does this lead to? Or it leads to an almost inhuman elegance of these figures. They don't seem to be humans. Yes, they are humans. Of course, they look like humans. But there is a dimension of extraordinary coldness in them. Almost cruelty of these figures. Well, what kind of word would need for you to represent yourself in that way? Well, it's a world where you are occupying a position, particular position, previously defined to you by birth. Your psychology is not as important. What is important is what you are, not who you are. But it's also a very dangerous world. For instance, somebody like Cosimo de' Medici, he had to face revolutions, including the revolutions of the Republicans. The revolutions was aided by the King of France. Cosimo de' Medici had to face wars against the French that could have led to his being completely losing everything. He was constantly surrounded by people who would love to get rid of him, constantly surrounded. So in that world, to be secretive is, in effect, a necessity. Only an idiot would show himself fully in a world where he showing the least weakness could lead to his demise. His greatest masterpiece is this one. I did an article on this one, and I sent it for publication. I don't know what the response will be for the publication of this article, but I will show you. I'll tell you the previous interpretation of this image, and then discuss that previous interpretation. So what do we have here? What we have is Venus. We know that this is Venus, according to an interpretation by Panofsky, for instance. We know that this is Venus. How do we know that this is Venus? We know that this is Venus because she's carrying a golden apple. The golden apple that she won in a beauty contest with Hera, Athena, where the judge was the Prince Paris, the Trojan Prince Paris. So we know next to her is the god Eros, the god of love. Yeah, let's call him the god of love to be nice. And Eros is holding his mother in a very particular manner. And we see here Venus holding the arrow of Eros and directing it towards herself. And by the way, the way that Eros seems to be holding his mother is completely inappropriate. It has been defined by almost all art historians as being incestuous. Why? Well, she is his mother. He's holding her that way, and this is and the direct, self-directed arrow is, in fact, she is directing the arrow towards themselves, leading to a, next to her is this figure. The figure has a foot. One of the foot has a hole in it. It's transpersed by something, by the needle of a rose, by a rose needle. And this figure is throwing flowers at them. He's happily throwing flowers at them. Then we have the figure here. The figure here is the god Kronos. We know that this is god Kronos, the god of time, because above him there is a sand watch. تعرفوا الساعة تبع بيستعملوها للساند watch. And again, let's see this. Next here, we have this blind figure. Kronos seems to be taking a cover away, whereas this blind figure seems to be fighting to push it back in. So Kronos is showing us what's going on here, whereas this figure seems to be hiding it. And then you get this absolutely terrifying figure. I wish I could show it to you in more detail. I mean, this figure of what seems to be an angelic woman or an angelic girl right behind this person here, right behind the boy. But if you continue this, you will notice that she has, in fact, the tail of a serpent, and that in one of her hands she is holding the end of this tail, which has scorpion's sting, and in the other, she is holding honey, honeycombs. What the? And then you have this figure of a person screaming his head off in absolute pain. What is this? Oh, sorry, I forgot. Max, here.
Yeah.
I think بحس هيدا ريبريزنتاسيون للواحد لما يستسلم للتنتاسيون سكسيال تبعه. أنا بعرف ابنها لفينس كان كمان بروستيتيوت، كان يشتغل از بروستيتييه، كانت هي تشغله معه. he was her servant لأمه. يعني كنت تمشي وهو يرش الورد وراها.
That's okay. It's an interesting interpretation, but
فبحس الفاميلي ورا بالصبي هي السكس، الريبريزنتاسيون للسكس.
possible.
البوزيتيف والنيجاتيف تبعه، والبيرسون اللي عم بيصرخ ورا هو الهيومن، لأنه الإكسبرسيون أكتر هيومن غير عن هوديك.
Okay. Well, yes, this the interpretation is very interesting. Is that one possible interpretation was that this is Venus, the goddess of beauty. That what we have here are masks of satire and nymphs. That this is a child throwing petals on flowers. With his that this is the representation of something close to what you said, of what happens when sexuality is in fact left loose. There were several interpretations of this. That this is, for instance, the figure representing trompery. Trompery in English, when you're thinking of 3 languages. That this is the representation. Are we there? Yeah. That this is a representation of folly, craziness. That this is the result of folly, and that this is time, in fact, attempting to hide. By the way, these are also representations of Khidea, and this is time trying to hide, and this is time trying to, and the interpretations of these, there are several interpretations of these. There are, in fact, dozens of interpretations of these. I think they're all wrong. I might myself be wrong, but I think they're all wrong. Yeah. I think this is a representation of Oedipus, of the story of Oedipus.
A story of who?
Oedipus. Oedip.
Oedip? Okay.
Well, how do we know that this is Oedipus? How do I know that?
قصدك بيقولوا عنها عقدة أوديب يعني بالفلسفة؟
You know the story of Oedipus, right? Yeah. You know the story of Oedipus? Do you know the story? They predicted that he will will kill his father and marry his mother.
Yes.
So he tried to escape his fate. And in trying to escape his fate, he went to Thebes. On the way to Thebes, he met a man. We fought with him, killed him. And then he met a sphinx. The sphinx gave him a riddle. The riddle was, what starts its life on 4 feet, continues its life on 2 feet, and ends its life on 3 feet. What is it? Well, he solves the riddle. By solving the riddle, he pushes the Sphinx to suicide. And by pushing the Sphinx to suicide, he rids the city of Thebes from this. In recompense, to recompense him for this, the people of Thebes give them the queen. through discovery, he discovers that the man he killed was his father and that the woman he killed was his mother. That the woman he married was his mother. He is pushed to discover this because there was a malediction upon Thebes, a plague upon Thebes, and the plague is in fact lifted when in fact Oedipus discovers this and blinds himself before he blinds himself and exiles himself from Thebes. Okay, so طلع فيها منيح. Why would Pontormo, Bronzino, and by the way, Pontormo did too. Why would Bronzino represent a sense, an image of incest? The second element, my first akid, that to my view, that this is the representation of the story. Why would they of incest? In all of ancient history, in all of ancient literature, the greatest expression of incest, the greatest narrative about incest is Sophocles' Oedipus, the story of Oedipus. The second element, why does this child have a foot that is transperced, has a hole in it? Do you know what the name Oedipus means? The name Oedipus means swollen foot. Why is his swollen foot? His foot swollen? Because when his parents discovered that as a child, a prophet came to them and told them that he will marry his mother and kill his father. His father, the prince of Thebes, the king of Thebes, attempted to have him killed. So they pushed a hole in his foot and carried him through this hole to throw him away. So they threw him away outside of the city, waiting for an animal to kill him. So what do we have here? What is this figure? With a human face and the tail of a serpent. What in mythology, what do we have with the human face and the tail of a serpent? It is the closest approximation we have is a sphinx. When I discovered this, I couldn't believe that nobody has thought of this before. And then why do we have the figure of time? Well, this is more complex. It's related to the representation of theater. It's represented. Why do we have this figure? Well, this is the Tiresias. This is the figure of the prophet, the blind prophet, who will who will push Oedipus towards the discovery because he knows what the story is. And why do we have this figure? This is the figure of the person in plague. It's more complex, much more complex. This guy has syphilis. Syphilis was called the French plague. We know that this guy has syphilis. It was called the French plague. He lost his teeth. Sorry?
He lost his teeth.
He lost his teeth and he loses his fingers and he loses, This is a figure of syphilis, which was considered the French plague in a period where Cosimo de' Medici was in war against the French. Do you know who he gifted this painting to? He sent it as a gift. He sent it as a gift to Francis I, the King of France.
Wow.
And why did he send it as a gift to Francis I, King of France? Because Francis I, the King of France, there was rumors that he had syphilis. And eventually, when he dies, reports of the period, great number of reports of the period say that he died of syphilis. شو عم يعمل؟
Syphilis?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what did Cosimo de' Medici do? he sent him a message to his most dangerous enemy. It's a beautifully painted picture, engaging Francis in a decoding, which was the great pastime of the time in painting. The public, the great amusement of the time was attempting to decode paintings. So he grabbed him with this, and what is the end result? What is the end message? You, Francis, are going to die. And why are you going to die? Because you practiced unnatural, by the way, he was notorious for his affairs, Francis I, whereas Cosimo was very known to be very strict in terms of his own, relationship with his wife. And he was telling him, because you practiced unnatural sexuality, you are going to die. This is a reminder to his greatest enemy, psychological warfare, to his greatest enemy, you are going to die. شفتوا قد ايه كانوا اذكياء؟ When they were conversing with each other, this is the level of intelligence they talk to each other with. By the way, the masks. Why the masks? Could somebody explain to me? Why do you think the masks? What's the symbol of theater? No? You want me to show you the symbol of theater? Come on, you don't know? The two masks?
Oh yeah, okay.
So what was Bronzino doing? He was clearly indicating that this is a reference to theatrical piece. So this tells you, in fact, that this intelligence, and this is what you should keep in mind, this intelligence wasn't like a gentil, mon gentil, this intelligence could be used, these paintings, in their refinement, could be used for extraordinarily violent messages. That could be used, the message is so violent that they could be used in psychological warfare. These were people, the refinement that they built was within a world, and this is their great heroism in a sense, was in a world of extraordinary danger. This refinement, this order that you see here, is a tool within a world where a man could very easily lose his life. And in that world of constant danger, these artists and their patrons, by the way, were able to produce something as intelligent, as beautiful as this artwork. Compared to them, our collapse, نحن الجاي, is more or less benign. Any questions?
أنا عندي سؤال.
Yeah.
بس the body للشخص regardless من هو اللي holding Venus.
Yeah.
كأنه مش يعني الراس مش للجسم.
Yeah, correct. It's like very detached. It's very weird.
يعني إذا ما في حدا يقدر يعمل هيدا البوستشر إذا جسمه هيك وراسه بهالطريقة والظهر مبين غريب، يعني كتير غريب الشكل، كأنه لافف حوالين الأم مش إنه جسم طبيعي.
Yeah.
أو
Absolutely.
Exactly دكتور، كنت بدي أسألك إنه هذا شخص غير الشخص الثاني اللي إنه holding Venus. صراحة ما كنت
شفتوا the distortions that these artists would do to the human body. I mean, if you look at this figure, this is not a baby. شكله baby. Okay, we recognize it as a baby, but this is not a baby.
Yeah. بس still يعني البوستشر تبعه very عادية كبوستشر wise.
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely correct.
But the one holding Venus عنده بوستشر كتير، يعني مش ما في يعمله الإنسان بجسمه. So كان قصده يعمل هيك أو كان في meaning من هالشيء؟
Hey, it's probably representing sexuality.
اوكي اوكي
يعني انه فايتين ببعضهم لدرجه انه the distinction between one figure and the next becomes blurred.
alright. Okay, got it.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct to point that out.
Okay.
بس في شغله بس يمكن نسيت فرجيكم اياها. anyway بتطلعوا بالايدين، الايد اليمين هي ايد الشمال وايد الشمال هي ايد اليمين.
Yes, كمان exactly.
Yeah, this is كمان a form of distortions. These are forms of distortions. هون really representing what's called reversal. It's very hard to explain it very rapidly with very limited amount of time we have. But this is related to something in the poetics of Aristotle called discovery and reversal. Discovery يعني وهو poetics of Aristotle بيحكي دغري عن الأديبوس ريكس تبع سوفوكليس، عن هيدي المسرحية. discovery leading to reversal. Discovery leading to what appears to be honey, leading to what appears to be poison. هيدي هون is related to the question كمان الهوني. Why did he choose honey? It's related to the god Apollo, the one who the Pythian prophetesses. You know, it's more complex than I made it out to be. But it gives you than I made it out to be in this. But it gives you the impression, the idea of the intelligence of these people. إنه في شغلة ما بنقدر بقى نعملها نحن. هيدي painting مثل هيدي. معكم خبر 400 years بعد ما كانوا بعد قدروا حلوها. For 400 years. Why? Well, أول شيء لأنه كوزيمو قصدها إنه تكون غامضة، لأنه بده يعلقوا لفرانسيس فيها. بده يشغل له باله، وبس يشغل له باله مثل شغله ما نكون فاهمينها. مثل شي حزوره ما عم تلقطوها، شو بتعملوا؟ بتضلكم تشغلوا راسكم فيها، مزبوط يا ملا؟ This is exactly مشان هيك هالقد في نحن واجهنا صعوبه انه نحل هيك. مشان هيك great figures of art history I think made mistakes when they understood this. أنا بالصدفة يعني عقلياً صدفة عقلية لقطة. And I might be wrong again, but it tells you the level of intelligence that these people have. And this is something that we are unable to do لأنه من تعملوا painting of this level ما حدا حيفهم عليكم. Unfortunately. All right, we'll stop here. Any questions? All right, we'll stop here. And I don't think we need this Saturday. شو بتفضلوا انتم? Do you prefer to finish this Saturday? No, Saturday I can't. So we don't need this Saturday. نحن صرنا هلا بالكور 13 وانا I will see you Friday, next Friday. Okay?